This is African American History is American History. On January 1st, 1863, at the stroke of midnight, the Emancipation Proclamation took effect. All enslaved people in Confederate states were declared legally free. But it wasn't until the 13th Amendment was passed that emancipation would become a national policy. The 13th Amendment was passed by the Senate on April 8th, 1864, and by the House on January 31st, 1865. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation declared all slaves in Confederate states free, effective in 1863, not everyone in Confederate territory would immediately be free. The Confederates believed that the Emancipation Proclamation was wrong because it deprived them of the free labor system that they had grown to love and profit from for so many years. As a result, a number of states still under Confederate control simply ignored it. Despite the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee at Appomattox on April 9, 1865, the Western Confederate Army of the Trans-Mississippi did not surrender until June 2nd. In the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, those enslaved would not gain their freedom until June 19, 1865. That's when some 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas. On the morning of June 19, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger arrived on the island of Galveston, Texas. He took command of more than 2,000 federal troops recently embedded there. Granger's job was to enforce the emancipation of slaves in Texas, oversee Reconstruction, and nullify all laws passed within Texas during the war by Confederate lawmakers. The Texas Historical Commission and Galveston Historical Foundation report that Granger's men marched throughout Galveston reading the executive decree known as General Order No. 3. First at Union Army headquarters, then on to the Customs House and Courthouse, and finally to the Negro Church, now known as the Reedy Chapel AME Church.
The people of Texas are hereby informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and the rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere.
By the time Granger read General Order No. 3, the executive to whom he referred, President Abraham Lincoln, was dead, and the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery still had yet to be ratified. The more than 250,000 enslaved black people in the state were free by executive decree. This day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people of Texas. The holiday received its name by combining June and 19. This is African American History is American History. By February of 1968, black sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee were fed up. They were earning low wages to lug heavy, open cans of garbage to their trucks. This rotting refuse often seeped onto their skin and into their clothes. Their white colleagues, who were often drivers, received better pay. They were also allowed to shower in the depot following the end of every shift. Since the black collectors were not permitted that luxury, they were forced to ride the bus or walk home in their damp, smelly clothes, covered with bits of trash and maggots. Now, the pay for a black sanitation worker was low. In 1968, the average wage of these workers was about $1.70 per hour, and that often included unpaid overtime. Plus, they could be fired, usually by white supervisors, without warning. In addition to their sanitation work, many worked other jobs or had to apply for welfare and public housing just to keep afloat. To say that their working conditions were appalling would be an understatement. The final straw came on a very rainy February 1st, 1968. As the rain came down in sheets, two black sanitation workers, Robert Walker and Ethel Cole, took shelter in the compactor of their truck. While waiting out the storm, a compressing piston malfunctioned, and the two men were crushed to death. The city of Memphis refused to pay death benefits for the two men. Robert Walker's widow was begrudgingly offered a measly $500 for funeral expenses. She had 5 children and was pregnant with a 6th. The roughly 1,300 black sanitation workers called for a strike. They had had enough. They began marching through the streets of Memphis, carrying signs that read, "I am a man," with the "am" underlined. The strike stretched on for weeks. By the end of February, trash began to pile up like mountains. Henry Loeb, the mayor of Memphis, who had just gained his second term the month before, wouldn't even listen to the strikers' demands. He instead sent in police officers with clubs and mace to break up the marchers. The strikers' goal and their bravery reached the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who had just embarked on the Poor People's Campaign. Against advice not to, he went to Memphis in March to meet with the strikers, and again in April, when at a local church he gave an impassioned speech that would turn out to be his last. Two weeks after Dr. King was assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, the Memphis City Council voted to recognize the Sanitation Workers Union. They promised higher wages to the largely black workforce. That strike in Memphis, Tennessee, 56 years ago, inspired a surge of labor activism throughout the country, cutting across a broad range of industries. What the black sanitation workers in Memphis demonstrated was that by joining unions, they have the power to improve their circumstances. Today, black workers have the highest union membership rate of any racial or ethnic group. However, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, black union workers still earn less than their white counterparts. This has been African American History is American History. I'm Harlan Kearsley, and on behalf of everyone involved with African American History is American History, thank you for listening. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Once you do, you'll be notified as soon as new episodes are posted. Thanks again, and please stay safe. African American History is American History. Copyright H.C. Kearsley, 2025.